we are going to be making some fried chicken cutlets with a pasta and a basil pesto sauce. We're going to bake up a sourdough bread, and then we're going to make a no-bake key lime pie because my oldest daughter has been begging and begging and begging me for one. And I decided, you know what, today's the day. So let's get our sourdough out. And this is our first one out. It's got like a mutant little bubble here, which is why I grabbed him first. And we'll score them up and get them baking. I believe this is my traditional one, but I have two. And one of them is traditional and one of them is mozzarella and pepperoni. And for the life of me, I can't tell. So until I score into it, I'm not sure. But either one will go good with tonight's dinner. But I couldn't tell from just looking at it. There was no telltale marks. So let's do a nice long score. Pepperoni, not traditional. It's a surprise mystery loaf. But I just couldn't see anything on there. My husband will be very, very happy. So this is pepperoni with so chopped up pepperoni and mozzarella in here. Goes good with pasta, so that's kind of a win. We'll do just a basic little cute score on it. And yeah, I thought I grabbed the traditional. I did not. But from the outside underneath, I looked around and I was like, I can't see a single sign of my inclusion, which means I wrapped it up well on there. Let's slide this guy into our Dutch oven that is nice and toasty.
So you got a comment that you survived the sleepover.
Survive is such a wonderful way to put it. Yes, it was a lot more difficult than I thought it would. For the most part, they were well behaved, very, very, very loud. And they did not understand the concept that little babies are sleeping. And that means we shouldn't be screaming at 3 a.m, which they were. We're going to put our sourdough in the oven at 500 for 20 minutes. So I'll have you guys remind me in 20 minutes, then we can take the lid off because this timer is just not my friend. So at 7:47, we'll take the lid off, then we'll turn the temperature down. It was definitely an adventure, I will say that. My daughter had a blast. She loved it. She was so happy. We made lip gloss and little bath bomb shower steamers and homemade perfume. I will say the homemade perfume and the little shower steamer bath bomb, total hit. I did not quite understand what was involved in making lip gloss and lip balm. Didn't really think about it when I purchased these little kits, and it required me melting beeswax, and then we had to hurry to get our scents and colors mixed in, and that was quite the work on there. So I will not be repeating that idea. But they had fun, and they made some very interesting color choices in because you had to mix in little powders, so it's more like a lipstick, on there. But they mixed blue and gold together, so they kind of got this putrid green. And I was like, it's an interesting choice. Not what I would have done. But they had fun on there. But yes, they were very chatty and very loud. Apparently, a Furby woke them up at 3 a.m, and it scared them all, which led to a mad dash run through the house, which I think was maybe a bit more exaggerated. We've got a stick of butter here. We're melting. We are going to be making our graham cracker crust for our key lime pie so that it can chill in the freezer. And then we can whip up and make our base in a little bit on there. But let's get our back one melted. I like when I make pies, like a graham cracker crust pie, I like a really thick graham cracker crumb. And that's mainly because I do not like the texture of cheesecakes or key lime pies or anything like that. So I need a lot of that crumbliness to make it even delicious. You know what I mean? I want equal part top and bottom for perfection.
Do you have a question? How's the cookbook going?
It is going, slow going. Lack of sleep from slumber parties is hard to function. But I did a little bit of work on it today, and we've got some more recipes put in there. So it's moving. It's a lot of work, but I think part of it is I'm such a perfectionist and I want it to be perfect for everybody.
On track for end of March.
Yes, on track for end of the March is what I hope for. We need about 2 cups of graham cracker crumbs, which is about the rest of this. Instead of wasting another bowl to make more dishes, I am just going to mix all of my ingredients in my pie dish, and then we'll press it up since it's going to be pressed down in there. So saves you a dish for later, but about 2 cups of graham cracker crumbs on here. And then we need a little bit of sugar just to sweeten it up. Not a whole lot of sugar, just about a tablespoon or so. Well, we'll do about 2 tablespoons because I do a little bit more graham cracker crumb. So it's about 1 tablespoon. And there's another. And then I will give this a little stir. And then once my butter is melted, we'll mix it up. We'll press it firmly down so that we can have that really nice thick crust. I mean, who doesn't love the graham cracker crust? It's like the best part. Let's get a little fork here to give it a nice little toss because we just want that sugar mixed into the graham cracker crumb. You can always use graham crackers and then just pulse them in either your like food processor or a blender, or you could put them in a like little plastic Ziploc baggie and like pound them up, or like roll over with a rolling pin. But I had these in there. My daughter, my oldest daughter, she's a little bit, jealous of her younger sister's birthday party, as all siblings are. And she was like, Evie picked all of my favorite things for this birthday party. She did like all the spa stuff. She picked Chipotle and Starbucks because I went out this morning and I got Starbucks for all of her little friends. They got their little like strawberry shortcake frappuccinos this morning, make it extra special for them. And I was like, well, you've benefited. Yeah, it's the strawberries and cream. No caffeine. No. It's just the strawberries and cream, like blended base for it. It's their cream blended drink. And so I got that for them all this morning. And I was like, wait, you benefited from everything. You got all of this stuff too from there. But she was like, I know, but it's looked really fun. I was like, oh, I'm glad. Although she wasn't so excited when they decided to play hide and seek, when they kept going in her room for hide and seek. But it was fun. Never again. Okay, we're going to mix up there. Just waiting for this last little bit of the butter to melt. But I'm going to pour a little bit of it over so we can start this. And then I'll put the last remaining bits. There we go. Oh, it's pretty much melted. Get a little bit of direct heat on there. That way we can get this going. Because you want that to kind of firm up in the freezer before we put our base on it. And then we can work on getting our chicken ready to start frying up. I'm going to turn my noodles down, or my water just a little bit, and then we'll drop our noodles in. So just mix your butter through your graham cracker crumb until it's all mixed up well. It's sometimes easier just to get in there with your hands so that you can really crumble the butter in. And then what we'll do is we are going to press it down. And just tossing it there. And then we'll firmly press it in. And that will help it hold its shape. And you always feel like you need a lot more butter than you think, but if you want it to hold it together, you're going to need it. Okay. Now what we're going to do is we're going to press it down. I like to make a little bit of a ridge on it, so I'm just going to kind of push it up to the sides here so you have that pretty little side piece on it. Like I said, more graham cracker crumb filling, the better. And get this pushed all the way down. Let's see if I have a little bit more butter in here. I think I do. And tap that in there. And just, again, like when we made our Rice Krispie treats the other day, firmly press, because that pressing it down will allow it to hold together. Now, this is going to be one of those that you chill and you keep refrigerated, so that butter will solidify and hold together firmly. But we want to make sure there's no air pockets in there or anything. I always say it's a good workout when it comes to baking. So here is our lovely graham cracker crust. I'm going to give my hands a quick rinse because, of course, they're nice and crummified.
Jackie likes Grayson.
Yes, he loves my little apron. The what?
Jackie on the chat.
Oh, thank you. I know, it's so nice, isn't it? Little Jackie, my Jackie, I thought I was talking about. He likes to grab them off and he runs around my house with them. He likes to take all of my stuff. Earlier, you know how we always talk about how he steals food and takes like the little like food and plays with it. He took some grapefruit and was playing soccer with the grapefruits. And he even had one where he like kicked it in the air. And I was like, dude, this is for eating. We have 1,000,001 balls in this house. You don't have to take the grapefruits. And then he takes the tomatoes, and the tomatoes pop, and I think he really enjoys that. Little bites out of them. He loves it. They have, at Christmas time, they have like these cute little apron sets that I have for them. They're little Christmas ones, and he loves to put it on. He's like Jackie loves kind of dress up. One of his little Christmas presents this year, which I didn't think was going to be such a huge hit as it was, but I got him and Teddy like these little baby shark robes, like after their showers and baths, they can put a robe on. And he absolutely loves it. And so he'll put the baby shark robe on, like it's a green, he has a green one, and Teddy has a blue one. And he just walks around with it, and he's like, baby shark, and it goes doo, 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 and he snaps his hand. It's just so funny. But as soon as he sees it, I have to hide it because otherwise it's all he wants to wear. So we're going to scoop up. We've got our chicken. We'll fillet it here in just a second, but we're going to scoop up 2 cups of all-purpose flour. This is going to be the base for our dredge. And then we're going to add in some good, I've got quite a bit of spices here. We're going to season it up well because we want it to have some great flavor. And let me get my pasta going in here for this. And that way it will be ready right kind of when the sourdough is about to come out. So we're going to use up a bunch of they're all essentially like a penne or a ziti pasta. We're going to use up the rest of it. Because like I said, I like to go through because apparently I feel the need not to use like that much noodle. It's like my kids, they'll like pour some milk and they have like 2 sips left in the jug and they put it back in there. And I'm like, you couldn't have taken it. And I know in my mind, the only reason they didn't drink the last of it is so they wouldn't have to wash out the jug, you know, and put it in the recycling. So they could leave that job for someone else and then go out and restock it. Because our rule is, you know, if you take the last of something, you have to go out and restock it. So the next one. And I know that's why they don't take the last sip or the last little piece in there. I'm like, I know, I wasn't born yesterday. Okay, give that in here. We are going to use a little bit of this pasta water in our dish. So I'm going to put a little bit of salt in here. And that way it will add just a nice little bit of flavor to it. Okay, let's finish up making our dredge. We've got our 2 cups of flour in here. We're going to add in some onion powder. We're going to use about about a tablespoon of onion powder in here. This is going to give it a nice golden color when it cooks up and a great kind of savory flavor. Then I'm going to use some Italian seasoning. I'm going to use about 1.5 teaspoons, maybe a little bit more, 2 teaspoons. I always err on having more spices than less because, again, only the outside of your chicken is going to get it. We're going to do about 1 teaspoon of paprika. And then I have some oregano, which is in our Italian seasoning, but we're going to add about a teaspoon more because I'm kind of leaning in a little bit on that nice kind of Italian seasonings because it will go well with our pesto pasta. We're going to do about a teaspoon of basil. And then I have Mrs. Dash's table blend, which is kind of like an everything blend, but it has some pepper in it, some of rosemary, a little bit of some of those other spices. I'm going to do about a teaspoon and a half. And then we're going to finish it off with some garlic salt. Since we have a good amount, we're going to do about a tablespoon of garlic salt in here. A couple good shakes around. And then we are going to mix this up. And then we'll get our eggs whipped, and then we'll get our chicken prepped. Let's get these. And then, looking good. So you want to mix it around, and you can see we've got a lot of great spices in here. As you see, it's nice in there. Just make sure you get around to all of those corners, because sometimes those spices like to hide. But perfect. So we have that nice and ready. Just going to move this out a little bit farther so that when we get to our chicken here in just a second, I'll have just my chicken cutting board for that.
Do you ever use a deep fryer?
I have a deep fryer. I just don't use it all unless I'm going to do a lot of deep frying for a lot of things. I don't use it because it uses so much oil, and I don't regularly deep fry things. And so it's not, you can reuse it, but it's so infrequent that I do it. So then it kind of goes to a waste for it. But I occasionally, I haven't done it in a while, but I occasionally do this, like, it's almost like this delicious fried everything dinner, where I'll like fry the French fries and make, chicken or popcorn shrimp, or all sorts of things. And I'll do hush puppies and everything. And it's like the most fried dinner ever, but it's so delicious. But I don't do it often because it's so delicious. And so fried in oil. And that's kind of the main reason for it. I have my Fry Daddy. I've had it for a long time on there. But I hate wasting so much oil on, for that, when I can get very similar results by frying in my pan. And then I can use olive oil, which is my preferred oil. We're going to mix up our eggs here until we have our nice, all the egg whites are mixed into it. Here we go. You just don't want any long, stringy ones. So that should be good. And then, did I not set my panko out? Let me grab my panko breadcrumbs so that I have it set out. And then we'll fillet our chicken and we'll start breading and dredging them on there. So let me grab them. I just bought a nice, big, huge tub. So we are golden. I'll have it opened and ready. So that will be for our second dredging. Okay, let's get our chicken filleted and ready for this, because I always fillet them up because this is such a really big piece of meat that if you try to just fry it up whole like this, you'd have to fry it at a pretty low temperature, and it would take it forever for it to fully get through. And again, you always risk burning your chicken when it's so thick. So fillet it up, make it a little bit thinner. That way it will stay nice and juicy and tender, but cook through evenly. And again, this one's so fat, I might fillet it again. Yeah, you know what? I think we'll do it. We're just going to cut it down a little bit. That one's good, but this part, I'm going to butterfly it. So butterflying is a little bit different than filleting in the sense that you're not going to go all the way through. So I'm just going to turn it into a slightly bigger fillet by butterflying it. And then we'll get these here. Again, try to cut off any bits of fat because they're going to be coated in a breading. They're not going to crisp up, so they'll just be rubbery, and they just won't be good. So cut them off. That way you have a nicer piece of meat at the end. And sometimes I will say you get great pieces on there. And sometimes, you know what I mean? It gets like Sometimes I found chicken breast and I'm like, there's a lot of fat. I got to do a lot of trimming. Must have been the day that the sub filled in for the butcher. Here, get this. And get these through on here. I know I was kind of trying to figure out what to do for dinner tonight because tomorrow's our chili thing. And I was like, what to do? Last night we had Chipotle as Evie's request for her little thing for her friends. And so I was like, oh, relentless. And of course, Torrin, we're driving back from his basketball game. And he's sitting there and he goes, I know what we could have for dinner. And this is always his request. Can we have fried chicken of some sort? So I was like, you know what? We haven't had it in a while. I will make fried chicken and then we'll figure out the rest of dinner from there. So we've got our sourdough in. We've got our chicken fry you're dredging up here. A pasta sounds perfect. Complete opposite of what we'll be having tomorrow. Tomorrow will be chili and wings and dips galore. I'm gonna make my guacamole. We'll make our just classic cheese dip. That is a staple my husband absolutely loves. And I'm gonna make my French onion dip. And we'll do wings in a couple of different ways. And then my famous chili, of course. And a couple other little things along the way on there. But everyone, I didn't know how much my son loved my chili, but he was talking about it with my stepdad the other day. And he was like, oh, I can't wait for the Super Bowl. Mama's going to make her chili. And I was like, ooh, I didn't know he loved it as much as he did. But he does. Although it's funny, when he eats his any type of Mexican food or food that's a little bit spicy, he eats it with a lot of sour cream. So I made sure, I was like, I'll make sure I get another tub of sour cream because his bowl will be like half chili, half sour cream, even though my chili is not spicy at all because you know me. I like it very, very mildly spiced.
You have a question? Would you do chicken thighs the same way?
Yes, you definitely could do chicken thighs the same way. Chicken thighs are wonderful because they're a nice and tender piece of meat, and they have a little bit more naturally fat spread throughout, so you have a juicier cut there, but work was wonderful for this. Okay, we've got our first dredging on. You know what I'm going to do, because it looks like it's been about 20 minutes. I'm going to give my hands a quick wash up, and that way we can get our sourdough out. Okay. Let me grab, where's my little alligators? Here they are. So what we're gonna do is we'll take this out. We're gonna take the lid off of it, and then we'll turn our oven down to 450 and we'll bake for the remainder 20 minutes at 450. Okay. Look at that. Beautiful. I can definitely see the pepperoni now popped out here. So, looking gorgeous. I'm going to slide this guy in here. I'm going to bring the temperature off. I'm going to cancel it out, and then I'm going to put it all back in again, and we're going to do 450. So 20 minutes at 450, and that will give you a nice kind of perfect little brown, golden blondish brown crust. So let's see, 20 minutes from now, 8:08. Slide that over there. Okay. Give our noodles, I'm going to give them a quick check, but these noodles tend to take a long time because that penne cooks a little bit longer. Let's get some oil in here so that it can start heating up, and then we'll get our dredging going, and we can start frying, because it always, since we're a big family, it takes us a couple of batches to fry up our food. Yeah, that should be good. So the nice thing is doing a pan frying method, you don't have to have your chicken completely submerged. You just need enough to at least cover it halfway. Once you put the chicken in there, it will raise the oil level up, and then we'll flip it halfway through. So we're going to have that starting to heat up. I'm going to heat it up on high, and then once it's nice and hot and I drop the chicken in, I'll turn it down to a medium and we'll fry at around a nice 350 or a medium temperature. We've done our first coating of our seasoned dredge on here. So now we're going to add in about a cup or so of panko breadcrumbs. I like to use the seasoned panko breadcrumbs because it, again, adds more flavor. And that's always the biggest thing that most people struggle with, is making sure that their fried chicken is, or their breading is seasoned enough. You think that you're adding a lot of spices in there, but most of the time you're undershooting it, or you're way under. So always add more than you think. We'll give this a good mix in. Now, I always like to do the mixture of the dredge and the panko breadcrumbs, but if you want a super crunchy kind of breading on it, you could do just the panko breadcrumbs. It's my oven letting me know it's at 450 right now. Okay, let's slide this out of the way, and then we'll get these guys ready to go. It's kind of a messy process. We'll make some room. We'll go in here, and you're going to coat it up. The egg wash is going to stick to the chicken now that we have our good dredging on there. And then into our bowl. I'm decided to move up a size bowl because my chicken pieces are always so big now. We'll push it on, kind of make sure all that clings on there. And now we'll put it out. And when we're ready to, once our oil's hot, we'll drop it in. Never put your chicken in like cold oil or warm oil. You need hot oil. That if you drop it in while it's cold, it will give you a soggy, chewy crust. It won't give you that crispy crust that you want. So very important to make sure it heats up. And then another thing I always say is, once your oil's hot, lower and slower. I do a nice right at the middle, sometimes a little bit low, around a 4 for frying it, because another mistake a lot of people do is they cook it too high, and then what happens is you get beautiful and golden brown on the outside, but then it's undercooked on the inside. Now with chicken breasts, we can fillet these so that they're not as thick and they'll cook up more evenly. When I do like a chicken quarter or a drumstick, I'll do a parboil on them, which is a slightly different method. A parboil is simply, you're going to drop your chicken in boiling water for about 5 minutes, which starts the cooking process and heats it up. It doesn't cook it all the way through, but it makes it to where you don't have to fry it quite as long. And it keeps it really juicy and tender. Here, get this guy. He's a little one. And we'll get this in here. And then I'm going to give my noodles a quick little stir, which is why this is kind of my golden rule, is when I'm dredging or doing something messy, try to remember to do it with just one hand. That way you have the freedom of another hand to kind of move around and do stuff instead of running back to the sink every 5 seconds.
Can you use cornmeal and the flour for crispiness?
You can, but it will give you a slightly different texture and flavor. So cornmeal is a bit more gritty, so you'll have a grittier texture to it. And if you don't mind that, you can. If you want it to be more crunchy, there's a lot of different variations you can do. You can do a straight up like a panko breadcrumb. You can also do corn flakes, potato chips, crushed crackers, crushed pretzels. Those all give you bigger crunches in them. Even Rice Krispies can give you a nice big crunch in it. Growing up, had a friend's mom. She made Rice Krispie fried chicken. It was the funniest thing, but it was delicious. You have to get the unsweetened Rice Krispies because you don't want that little bit of that sweetness on there. But it was right in there, and it definitely was interesting and gave it a crunch, but it was delicious. Same thing. Corn flakes, not frosted flakes. And on there, like the other day, we made Wiener Schnitzel. where we did, we pounded out pork tenderloin. And so instead of, I did my seasoned dredge kind of for the first one, but for the second coating, we did just the panko bread cutting so that has that nice crunch to it. Let's check this out and drop a little bit of flour in here. Not quite yet, almost. And there. And then what we'll do is once our noodles are done, they'll be, I think, about 2 more minutes, and then we should be ready with them. We are going to reserve a little bit of our starchy water, our pasta stock, but our starchy water for our sauce. And then we'll strain them, we'll put them to the side, and then we are going to make a lovely sauce using fresh basil, garlic, some of our pasta water, some pesto, a little bit of cream, and then we're going to make kind of almost like a fresh tomato, like almost like a bruschetta to go on top of it, like a bruschetta salad. So of course we won't have the toasted up bread, but that, that nice little tomato salad on it to put on top of our pasta and our chicken to give a nice little freshness to us. Okay, 2 more done. Now, I will say, if you are just cooking for a smaller group of people and not a large family like us, this goes a lot quicker. You don't have to do as many batches on it. But the nice thing is if I'm doing it several times, you'll get to see each step a few more times, which can help you. And always feel free to ask questions because I do love to answer anything on there if I can. Okay, last guy going in. And then we'll be able to work on our no-bake key lime pie here.
Oh, what's in your dredge?
So my dredge right now, this is the second round. So we started off with our seasoned dredge, which has flour, onion powder, Italian seasoning, garlic, salt, paprika, basil, and oregano, and a little bit of Mrs. Dash's table blend, and then some panko breadcrumbs. So a good amount. It looks like our oil is nice and hot. So I'm going to drop my first round of chicken in. And then we'll turn our temperature down. As you can see, when I pop it in there, it is starting to boil right away. I'm going to bring it down to a round of 4.5, and we'll let that cook up. Don't overcrowd your chicken. Make sure there's enough room in there so that it's not touching each other. And perfect. We'll get those 3 because those are pretty big. And then I'm going to clean up this, get my hands washed. We'll test our noodles. We're going to reserve some of that pasta stock. And then on to more delicious things. And unfortunately, I have found that there's really no great way to dredge a chicken without getting your hands dirty. I think that was when we were remodeling our kitchen 2 years ago. I think that was probably one of the foods my kids missed the most because we turned our office into a makeshift kitchen, which means I had to do very basic meals. Yeah, perfect. And so we had, it was what I could cook in an Instapot, a crock pot, a air fryer, and a little like toaster oven. So very limited, and our bathroom, like sink, that was our water. So nothing that was too messy or too bougie or too gourmet. And so I did not, for that entire 6 months, I did not make any fried chicken or anything like that. It was very, very limited. I think they were very happy when I could get back to normal cooking. Here we go. We're just going to reserve, I'm going to reserve 2 cups. I'm not necessarily going to use it, but I'd rather have more than enough. That way I don't have to use as much cream or other liquid. Let's strain our noodles. When you're making the pasta, I like to cook it right at an al dente or a smidge before because I'm going to be putting it in my pasta sauce, which means it will soak up some more.
Yeah, question, would you suggest frying walleye that way?
Yes, walleye would be wonderful that way. I like a good hand breading on walleye because it is similar in texture. It's not like a super thick and flaky fish. Some fish, like the thicker cods, I'll do a batter on it, but walleye is one that works really well with a hand battered breading like that. That's the one thing about living here in Tennessee. You know, originally I'm from Iowa. In the Midwest, you have walleye everywhere. But here, walleye is very hard to come by, and I love it. This summer, when we went to the national park, we went to Voyageurs National Park, and we ate at a couple of restaurants there. And anytime they had a fried walleye sandwich, I got it. I couldn't resist. I had to have it. Okay, let's see. I want to see if I want to get to that first, because this is going to take a hot minute. Let's get our cheesecake, not our cheesecake, our key lime pie whipping up here. That way we can get a start on it. It's actually a pretty easy process. Not too difficult. They're really easy to make. This one is a really easy kind of version of it. We're going to start by mixing together our sweetened condensed milk, and then we need about a half a cup of lime juice with and then some lime zest. I'm going to use a mixture of fresh lime and then a little bit of key lime juice. Key limes are, if you actually get key limes, they're small. They're sweet. They're like a mixture between a lime and like a mandarin orange. So they're slightly sweeter than a regular lime. Where's my little, there it is. So, but they're really small and they're not fun to juice. So I like to use the kind of regular lime juice for it. It's a little bit nicer. I'm going to zest it first, and then I will juice it, and then we'll get a thing. The juicing of the lime juice and the milk together will kind of react with each other. Where did I put my zester? It's right here. Always zest your fruit first before you juice it, because it just will take, it's really hard to zest a fruit that you've already juiced because it's not as firm. So I need about a tablespoon of fresh lime zest for this, which is going to be depending on how big your limes are and how much they want to give you. That's going to be about two full limes. And then, of course, we'll use a little bit extra to make it bougie looking at the top. You know, you got to have that little decorative lime things. One of these days, I'm going to take the time to make some candied limes to put on top so I can really jazz it up. Maybe this summer. It's key lime pie. While it's not a winter thing, my daughter asks for this probably every week. Very often, probably. She asked for it yesterday, and then she asked for it again this morning. And she asked for it when we were at the store the other day. So I was like, you know what? I have all the ingredients. Why not? So let's zest these one up here. And just for the limes, try to get that nice bright green off. Once you get down a little bit deeper, that whiter part of the lime has more of a rimey flavor, and you want that. Plus, it's not as pretty. So stick with a nicer, brighter green for that prettier look. Although Lena might be a little bit upset with me. I'm not sure I'm going to use all of these, but I'm going to take the stockpile of limes I have for her. She has to have them there. And we'll check on our I almost said fish, because I was thinking about that fried walleye sandwiches I had this summer. We'll get those looked at. I think we might be about ready to flip them. So I always like to look, your telltale signs as you look for around the corners of it. If you start to see a little bit of gold touching up, that means you're about ready. So I'm going to grab some tongs and a spatula. Spatula is really great. It's a good kind of tool to use them both. Looking pretty good. So you flip under, slide like this, grab it and toss it over. That way you don't splash yourself with oil. Beautiful. I'm going to rotate my pan. Just slide it up here, because as I have found, this part of my burner is slightly hotter than the rest of the lower part. And so I kind of rotate it to make sure it evenly gets kind of heated up there. Let me grab a small little plate here to rest these guys. And we'll get those kind of frying up. And I've got these cooking at about a 4.5 on again, so not super high on there. Okay. That is just about a tablespoon. Again, I always just kind of do my LC measurements, my little visual measurements here. But again, zest from about 2 lemons. Let's open up our sweetened condensed milk. That way, when we juice our lemons on there, or not our lemons, our limes, they're green. It can start the process of what's on here. This guy, there we go. Let's get this in here. These cans are always a little bit tricky because there's such a small ridge on them. So you need 1 can of sweetened condensed milk for this. But we're also going to be whipping up a cup of whipped cream, or of heavy cream into whipped cream, which we will fold into it to make it a really light and fluffier kind of key lime pie. But this is going to give both the sweetness for it and that base for it. Okay, put that there. And then we need kind of a half a cup of our limes. So let me grab a little knife. And I'll see where my fresh limes get me, and then I'll use some of my key lime juice that I have. And I like to do the mixture because the fresh limes, I think, give you a brighter citrus note to it than the juice. But the juice has a little bit more sweetness to it because, again, it's key lime. And it would take you a lot of fresh limes to get to a cup. So I don't, again, use all of that. Because I think we will get, out of these few, won't get that many. So we'll juice it up in there. I like getting a little bit of that pulp in there. It will add a bit of that flavor. Check my chicken here, see how it's looking. Give it a good little peek over here. I'm going to turn it down to a 4 now that it's nice and hot. Okay, a little bit longer, I think. Almost there. It's always good to give it a nice little check to make sure we're close. And then we'll grab some paper towels here. And we'll get our next round on there. So when I take my chicken off, I like to take my chicken off and put it on paper towels because it soaks up any of that extra oil and it leaves it nice and crispy. You don't have to use paper towels. You can use like a cookie cooling rack and put it on there as well. Either method works well. You just don't want to leave it flat on a plate or something like that because if it sits flat, it's going to sit in its oil and it's going to get soggy. So you want to put it on something to either keep it like to suck the oil out or, let it drip dry, kind of cool. There we go. On here. Let me grab some paper towels real quick.
Do you have a question? Are you prepping for game day?
I am not prepping for game day. We're making dinner tonight, but I have been, in my mind, I've got all my stuff for tomorrow going through it. My kind of thing, it's not a super crazy, it makes a lot of food, but there are lots of little easier dishes to make, which is really wonderful. And they sit well, like a lot of dips, and then the chili is a great one to kind of pop out at the last, you make it and it can sit and stew all day. So we are pretty good and ready for tomorrow. I'm excited there. Here is our beautiful golden fried chicken. Remember, put it hot oil side down. That way it continues to suck out that excess oil and leaves it nice and crispy on here. I'm going to slide it down here just a little bit now. Beautiful. So we've got our first round of our chicken here setting up nice and hot and crispy. And I'm going to get my next set into the oil. And that way it can fry up. And this one I can do more because those first rounds were pretty big. Now I will say the fried chicken stays nice and hot for a good while. It looks like we are ready to take the sourdough out of the oven. So I'm going to grab and just slide this over here. And then we can pop that up here. And then we can finish up on our key lime and then make our sauce and finish up our chicken. So we're getting kind of to this last little thing. And this is looking gorgeous, guys. Look at our beautiful one there. I'm going to turn this oven off real quick. This is our pepperoni and mozzarella sourdough bread. So we made it with our base sourdough recipe, our traditional one, but then we added during the lamination stage and the thing we added in mozzarella, and I diced up the pepperoni to have smaller little chunks because I find if you leave the pepperoni whole, it's just a little too cumbersome when you're eating it. But the little pieces give you more flavor throughout, and pepperoni is a higher oil one, so it allows it to spread out and really season up your bread. But again, just beautiful golden. The 50 or 20 minutes at 500 and 20 minutes at 450 really gives you this beautiful kind of golden brown crust on there, and it's just wonderful. Okay. Slide that right there. We've got that cooking. Our sauce will take like no time to make, so let's get this whipped up. We'll do the rest of our key lime. So I've got in here about 1/4 cup of our fresh lime juice. We're going to do the rest with our key lime juice. Again, you can always do just the key lime juice, which is, I feel like this is the key lime juice everybody knows, the Nelly and Joe's one. But you can do it just that if you want to. I like the fresh lime because it gives you a little bit of extra.
You got a lot of questions about the mitts. Where'd you get them?
I bought those on Amazon. Well, I didn't buy those on Amazon. I said my kids got those for me on Amazon for my birthday. I picked it out and then they ordered them for me. But they're another Amazon treasure there. So was very excited. Teddy and Jack were very, very excited about them. They have stolen them a couple of times and have had to find them because they put them on and they use them like hand puppets. But I love a good like little creature one. You know, I think in the past they've given me my bear mitts and my cat mitts. So anytime I'm there, and I saw these the other day and I was like, ah. And Teddy, he's very into animals right now, and ancient animals like the, Deinosuchus and the Borealisuchus and the super croc and the Titanoboa, all these ancient animals. And so he thinks these are the greatest things ever for that. He calls them when he puts them on. And then he's like, are they a snake or an alligator? And I was like, they could be whatever you want. Okay, we're going to mix in our fresh lemon or fresh lime juice and our key lime juice with our lovely sweetened condensed milk. And then we are going to whip up our whipped cream, and that way we'll fold this in there to make our base, and then we'll put it in our crust that we have mixing. And then we're going to make our sauce, and we will finish off our dinner because we are about like 10 or so minutes out. It goes pretty quick at the end here. We need a cup of heavy cream. We're going to whip that to make a lovely whipped cream on here. There we go. So heavy whipping cream because we're going to whip it. Now, the one thing is you just don't want to over whip your cream because if you do that, you're going to have butter. And while butter is delicious, we don't want butter for this recipe. So we're going to whip it till it's fluffy, and then we will fold it into our, actually, we're going to fold the other one into it because it just works a little bit easier that way. I'm going to use my hand mixer. Stand mixer works well. I'll wait for this as well. And we'll whip it up. I'll take a check on my chicken. And then we'll get our garlic cooking here and our basil, and we'll whip up our sauce. I just didn't want to do this too much because I don't want my garlic and my basil to overcook in here because I want it to stay really fresh. Okay. So we'll get this. It takes about 2 to 3 minutes to whip up whipped cream. And so we'll hold it through. There we go. Put it on there. Make sure when you do whipped cream, do a nice tall bowl. Don't do it in a shallow bowl or you're going to get whipped cream everywhere. As you can see, I'm already splashing myself. And it's one of those things, you're gonna go from being almost whipped to being whipped in like 10 seconds. So keep your eye on it. If you're gonna do it in a stand mixer, don't walk away or you will have butter. So we're almost there. But you need it to be firm enough to be able to fold in there. There. Looking good. Perfect. So nice little whip on it. Okay. We'll fold these in there and then we'll let it sit. But let's get our chicken flipped. Let's see how this is looking. You know what? I think these might need another minute or two. I'm gonna rotate my pan. And then before we head over there to fold that in there, I'm gonna turn it up. I'm just going to get my garlic going so that it can start to saute up nicely. I'll just slide this back here a little bit. So for our sauce, I'm going to use a good amount of garlic in here because that's going to make it taste just wonderful.
Did you add anything to the heavy cream?
No, just as it is, because we are going to be folding it into our key lime and our fresh lime and our sweetened condensed milk. So that sweetened condensed milk will add all of the sweetness and sugar to it that we want. So you don't need to add anything to it. You just need to whip it up. Just don't over whip it because it will curdle and turn to butter for it.
Do your parents join you for the Super Bowl?
They do join me for the Super Bowl. They have been joining me for the Super Bowl since, I guess the only times they didn't join me for the Super Bowl was when I was off in college. Because I went away, I went to Iowa State, so I went away for undergrad, but then for my master's and my doctorate, I came back to the Nashville area. I went to Vanderbilt for my master's and my doctorate. And I did all the Super Bowls there. So I have been hosting Super Bowl dinners for a very, very long time. And the menu is pretty much the same. And it's kind of a variation of, my mom used to always make, growing up, we always had chili on the Super Bowl, and then of course chips and dips and everything like that. But this is not, I've kind of taken her chili recipe and expanded it to make it the ultimate chili recipe on there. And it is one that my siblings all request when they're like, oh, can you make me that chili on there? We're gonna add in our pan, we're gonna get our garlic here. I'm gonna do about a tablespoon of olive oil with a little bit of butter to add a nice richness to the sauce. I don't wanna go too heavy on either one, but about a tablespoon of each, so half and half. Gives you just the nice flavor of it, but it allows it to kind of cook up a little bit nicer. And I'm going to turn this not too high because garlic is kind of temperamental and it can go pretty fast. There we go.
You have a question? Were you ever a teacher?
I was a teacher for many, many years, and I love teaching. I was an early childhood special ed teacher, and then I worked with like college students as well. I worked at a lab school, so I kind of worked with teaching college students and graduate students on how to work with young children. I loved it, but then when I was pregnant with Teddy, my fourth, I decided, because the opportunity presented itself, to stay home for a little while. And then Jack came along, and now we're here. So been home away for about a little over 4 years, and it has been really nice. For my first 3, they actually went to the lab school that I taught at, and then, and it was nice to have them there as well. But then they went off to elementary school, and had to say goodbye, and then it was hard. So it's definitely a different pace, but I have been enjoying it. Okay, we're gonna take our key lime, our sweetened condensed milk, our lime juice, key lime juice, and lime zest, and I'm gonna into our whipped cream here, and then we're going to fold this mixture into it. But I'm going to scrape it all the way into there, and then we'll fold it. I'm just doing it into the bigger bowl because it's bigger, but you could fold either one into either bowl. There's no rhyme or reason. Now, when you do this, you need to be gentle because, of course, you don't want to deflate your cream. So you're going to fold, and the best method is to just go from underneath and scoop it over and to kind of incorporate it. Now, as the fresh lime juice and the key lime juice interact with the dairy, the cream, and the sweetened condensed milk, it will thicken it up to leave you with that nice kind of thicker consistency. And this is one, again, it will sit in the fridge. It needs to chill for about 4 hours for it to completely firm up. But again, it's one of those just nice kind of delicious key lime pies that are light but delicious. And again, just try not to over mix it. Think about if you had egg whites here, just gently flip it in and fold it over. And that sweetened condensed milk will add enough sweeten to sweeten everything, and it does make it quite lovely. Here we go. That should be pretty good. Now, we made our graham cracker crust, so I'm going to pop that out of our freezer. For this, I made a nice, good, chunky graham cracker crust, which is about 2 cups of graham cracker crumbs and a stick of melted butter and about 2 tablespoons of sugar. Let's check on our fried chicken here. See if it's ready. Perfect. This one looks good. So I'm going to shake off any excess oil. I'll pop it over here. Looking beautiful. The paprika that we added in the seasoning here really gives it this nice kind of almost like an amber color to it, this little reddish golden color to it. That's one thing that's really wonderful about paprika is it's such a mild flavored spice, but it sure does give you that pretty coloring on there. Okay, let's get our last round of chicken in here. And then we'll be making our sauce and finishing everything up here. So, and I will say, when I pan fry chicken in the oil, this is our original oil batch, I can get about 3 batches of chicken in it before I have to switch out the oil. After 3 batches, what happens is you get too many little drippings and droppings in there that then can start to burn. But 3 works the best. So if you're ever doing this and you're doing it for a bigger crowd than what we're doing, and you have to do multiple, or you're using a smaller frying pan, you might have to switch out your oil midway through. But as long as you start out and you go low and slow in the beginning, you won't have burnt bits in there. Okay. We've got that going here. I'm going to, right out of 4, let's give our garlic and our oil a little stir here, and then we'll fill up our pie on here. It smells wonderful. Here we go. Well, thank you, Mary. We appreciate that. So we're going to let this, I have this lower. I don't want my garlic to burn, and garlic is very sensitive. So lower and slower, we've got it on about a 2. I want the garlic flavor to infuse in that butter and in that oil so that it really comes out. Here is our mixture. We're going to put it into our chilled crust here, and then we'll spread it out. And then we'll zest a little bit of fresh lime zest over the top. And then before you serve it, you can top it with some fresh whipped cream as well. For it, just don't add those on until you're ready to serve, or they'll deflate. Let me get all of this on here. My daughter doesn't know I'm making this, and she is going to be so happy. She, was last year around this time, we went to Florida for soccer. She had like her like championship games there. And we went there and I was like, okay, we decided that we were going to do a key lime crawl. So every restaurant we went to, we ordered key lime. So when we were going out for like lunch and dinner, and we had a lot of key lime pie with that. And then she came back. You would think that that girl had had enough key lime because we were there for like 5 days. But she was insisting that we had key lime pie. And I had to make a whole bunch of different variations of key lime pies to get there. We have all of those videos on there because I made them on stream there for it. And she still hasn't found her favorite yet. She's picked one. This one's kind of another variation of a key lime pie. This one is one of my favorite ones because it's like a really fresh one, but a light one, which I love. There's also the baking ones where you cook them and they're slightly different. I like the no bakes. They're my favorite. Let's finalize with a little bit of zest here. Give you a little bit more pizzazz. And then what we'll do is this will just chill in the fridge for about 4 hours to let it sit until it's kind of got that nice consistency. And then, of course, you can serve it with a little bit of whipped cream. Beautiful. Okay, I'll set that over there. And let's get this guy rolling here. Beautiful. They're crisping up nicely. Gorgeous. Okay, let me get 4. We've got that. And there's my basil. I've been using up, I got this really wonderful batch of fresh basil, and I was like, this is just going to be perfect for our sauce. I'm just going to take off and try to get rid of all the stalks. And pop these in here. Then we'll give it a mince up and we're going to toss it with a little bit. We'll give it some fresh, we'll add in some pesto. Now, one thing I recommend if you are going to be working and you don't make your own pesto from scratch, make sure you like the pesto that you bought from the store. I will say not all store pestos are created equally. I said the majority of them I personally don't like. I've only found 2 that I love. Costco's I really like, and this one I have right here is Rana, however they pronounce it. I like theirs. A lot of them, they can have like a really chemically flavor or really a lot of pine nut in them. So these are my 2 favorite, which are more simple, just basil and like Parmesan, which I prefer on there. During the summer, when my basil plant sometimes goes like crazy, I'll make a batch or a few of it because it's wonderful when it's freshly made. But you need a lot of basil to make a good amount of pesto. So it's not something I do fresh all the time. But for this, we're going to use some of this and this to give that really bright freshness to it. I'm going to put most of it in here, but we're going to reserve a little bit to toss on the pasta at the end. But I want this to kind of infuse in this butter and oil. Here we go. So we'll stir that in here, let it kind of toast up for just a second. And then we're going to add in our pesto. And then we'll add in our pasta water and some cream. And we're going to dice up some fresh tomatoes and red onions. And then we'll be ready to serve up here. I'm going to do about a heaping spoonful, around a tablespoon. Pesto is fairly strong, and I don't make mine too powerful in the flavor of it. I just like a little bit of a hint in there, but you can definitely add more if you want. There we go. Let it toast up just a little bit. Wonderful. Okay. Now we're going to add in a little bit of our starchy pasta water.
You have a question. How long does the pesto last in the fridge after you open it?
I will say it lasts a couple of weeks to, I would say a couple of weeks, as long as you are like clean when you're scooping it in and don't like double dip and everything like that with your spoon and stuff like that. It should last well. Some brands last longer than others. I typically use mine up fairly quickly because I'll use it in when I'm making stuffed shells or my lasagna. I use it, so I'll use a good amount of it, or I'll make a sourdough bread. for it. But yeah, it goes in there. It can be frozen though, so if you have it and you're not going to use it, you could portion up and put some of them in the freezer in like little cubes so that you can always bring it out. Because I buy the refrigerated one, not the ones that are like in the jars in the pasta section. Okay, we're adding in our pasta water a little bit at a time. So far I've added in about a half a cup to a little bit more. And this is just going to add a bit more liquid and base to our sauce, so you don't have to use a whole bunch of cream or other liquids. We're gonna let that simmer. So now I've got about a cup and a half. We're gonna let it come to a nice simmer. Let's get our chicken flipped here. Let's finish up the rest, and then we will be ready to about serve up here. There we go. Perfect. Nice golden edge, but you can see here with my first 2 rounds, it wasn't as foamy, but now that I have more flour drippings in it, it's gonna get more foamy. That's why I say you can do about 3 rounds before you get to be maxed out. Okay, I'm gonna grab about a handful of cherry tomatoes here. I'm gonna give them a quick rinse while our pasta sauce is kind of simmering. And then what we're gonna do is just like on like when you get a lovely bruschetta on there, it has a nice little tomato kind of salsa. I'm gonna just dice up some fresh tomatoes here. That way we can kind of top them on our pasta with some little bit of red onion. And it will just, and then I'm gonna get a little bit of balsamic reduction or balsamic glaze to drizzle over and some garlic salt. So we'll have this really bright, fresh tomato base to it, which will be lovely. And then I have my fresh basil there, which will be part of that little garnish. But just a great way to add a little, brighten something up that's really, really makes it pretty, but gives you this really fresh pop that I think kind of brightens up a pasta dish, which can be a little bit heavier on there. And it goes really well with the fried chicken. Just think about it. Bread is crispy and crunchy, and then you've got your bruschetta that's kind of crispy and crunchy, or like your chicken and crispy and crunchy. They're like the same thing. Chicken version, bread version. Get my red onion here. You don't need a lot of red onion. So I'm just gonna pull off, and then we'll dice this up nice and small because you want that crunch, but that mild onion flavor to it. You could also use a shallot if you have a shallot, but I wouldn't sub in a different onion for this. If you don't have it, just skip it. Well, it looks like our pasta is doing well. Add that in here. We're going to add in our fresh basil. And then we'll get a spoon. We'll stir this up. And yes. And we'll get this going. Let me grab my reduction over here for it. And then I'm going to grab another tong because our chicken is almost ready for this. I will have it on there since we are done with these guys. And let me grab a little spoon. I'm going to add a little bit of garlic salt onto our tomatoes, just a little bit, like a half a teaspoon. And then I have a little bit of a balsamic glaze here, so balsamic vinegar that has been reduced down, a little bit sweeter. Nice little drizzle. We're going to give it a nice stir. And this is what we're going to top on everything. Okay, beautiful. Now we are going to come over here. I'm going to add a little bit more of our starchy water. We'll give this a nice stir around. And then I'll taste it, see if we need to add any salt. Then we're going to add our cream in, and then our pasta in, and then we'll finish this off. It's a really, again, simple thing. We have our base in here has that pesto has a little bit of salt in it. Remember, we used our salty water that from there, so we'll see how much we need to add.
Niam sent you.
Well, thank you, Niam. We appreciate that. I'm going to add just a smidge more, but not much. A little bit of garlic salt. You know me and my garlic salt. And then before we add in our noodles, we're going to add in our cream. You don't need a whole lot of cream to get you to a creamy pesto base there, but you want a little bit. I'm probably going to add in about 1/4 of a cup, maybe 1/3. We'll mix it up. Now you'll think, oh, this seems liquidy right now. When we put the pasta in, which we cooked it right at an al dente, that's going to reduce and suck it in, and it will kind of thicken it up there. Okay. Don't worry if your noodles are covered here. I never coat my noodles in butter because that kind of prevents them from sucking up the flavor of it. So all you have to do is grab a pair of tongs, toss them around in the sauce, and they will slowly fall apart once they start hitting that sauce. So you don't need to coat them up. You just need to submerge them in your sauce. And then they break apart, and that way they can suck in all of that wonderful flavor. If you coat them in olive oil or butter, what happens is your noodles get coated in that oil base, which then prevents them from soaking up all of this delicious flavor. And that's what we want that to go in there. Because coating it in butter and oil, that was like the 90s, 80s version where you served your pasta and your sauce separate. You want to put them together. That way the next day, even right now, it has so much more flavor. Beautiful. This is looking fantastic. And now for our finishing touch here, as our chicken finishes up here, let me give my little zester, because we don't want any lime juice in here. Let me give my little zester a rinse, because this zester is actually a Parmesan grater, and it is the best zester I've ever had. Okay. So I've got our chicken. Let me check this real quick, because this might look like it's ready too. They are ready. Beautiful. I'm going to turn this off. We'll get our chicken in here. Perfect. Nice little drizzle. And I just try to slide these around because, again, you want to put every piece on a piece of paper towel so that it can soak up that extra bit of oil, leaves it extra crispy on there. Beautiful. And then remember, try to put it in the hot oil side down so that it, again, can soak it up and crisp it up. Okay, let's finish this pasta up, and then we can serve up. So we've got our, let's do it with my dominant hand there, our Parmesan cheese in here just a little bit, and then, of course, we'll garnish with Parmesan cheese. So slide it over. And you can always use pre-grated Parmesan cheese. Yes, Parmesan. It's delicious. It's better than Parmesan. It's more charming. But Parmesan cheese is actually one of the few cheeses that are naturally drier, so they don't have an anti-caking agent on them, which means they will melt wonderfully in there. There we go. Slide that off. We'll give this a quick mix, and then we are ready to serve up our dinner. Beautiful. So we have this lovely, just this kind of creamy basil pesto Parmesan on there. Beautiful. Okay. Let's get dinner served, guys, because I'm hungry and I know my kids are hungry. Although the amount of snacks that Evie had last night and donuts this morning, I don't think she'll be hungry for 3 days. Hey, Bruni. But I will say, after throwing her little party, she did in the party 3 times tell everybody I was the best mom ever. And she goes, isn't she the greatest mom ever? And I was like, I don't know if they're going to agree with you on that, but I will take it. That's my win. Let me slide this around here. We can bring our beautiful key lime pie over here that we're going to have chilling. And then I'm going to grab my sourdough bread as well, because we can do a crust reveal on that because it's had time to sit. Okay, slide this here. And let's get ready to serve up, guys. Okay, let's start with our bread here. And let me slide this over here. Let me climb there. I'm excited, guys. This is going to be a delicious, like, pizza bread on here, which will be amazing. Okay, so let's cut this guy in there. This is our pepperoni and mozzarella sourdough bread on our traditional base here. But look at that. You have our chunks of our pepperoni in there, our mozzarella cheese in there, and it's going to be so delicious. I'm going to cut a nice slice of this. What I like to do is during the lamination process, I put in pepperoni and mozzarella cheese all throughout during it. That way you get a little bit in every bite, but not overpowering because I don't want it to turn into a stromboli. But beautiful. So for dinner tonight, we have our pepperoni and mozzarella sourdough bread that we will be serving with our pesto parmesan noodles in a lovely creamy basil sauce. We use fresh basil, Parmesan cheese, garlic, and a little bit of pesto in there. And then we will be serving it with a piece of our crispy fried chicken on there that we coated with our panko breading that we seasoned up with oregano, basil, Italian seasoning. We're going to top with our delicious fresh tomato salad, like a bruschetta, with fresh tomatoes, basil, red onions, and a little bit of balsamic vinaigrette. A little grate of Parmesan cheese to finish it off. And then, of course, for dessert later tonight, once it has set, we will have our key lime cheese. This, again, is a no-bake key lime cheese with fresh lime juice and key lime juice and a lovely graham cracker crust. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining us here. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I try to do live cooking shows every single day, kind of show you what we're making for our family and hopefully teach you guys something along the way. Again, we do upload all of our videos to the link on our page. So if you ever want to recreate any of these recipes at home, you can just go to our page and search for what we made. We've got our crispy chicken with our basil pesto pasta and our bruschetta salad and our key lime pie. And you can always watch and cook along with me again. We also have a link to our Amazon storefront that has all of our different cooking gear and gadgets in it. I've got my hex-clad pans, my all-clad pans, my knives, my cutting boards. I need to add my alligator oven mitts that my kids got me to there as well. But we have that all in there for you guys to check out. But again, thank you so much for joining us here.